This is One Voice Lenawee. Stay informed. COVID vaccinations and boosters. This is One Voice Lenawee. Stay informed. COVID vaccinations and booster shots. How does this affect our children, finances, and the cost of living, race, and the fight for equity and equality? What will education look like in the future? What you should know about good health practices, employment, and job interviews in today's world. You need to know. Stay connected. One Voice Lenawee. Access to the information you've been looking for. Sponsored by United Way of Monroe and Lenawee counties. Now we present to you our host, D'Angelo Boone. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone for joining us right here on One Voice Lenawee. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for taking out their time to be a part of the show. For everyone that's in our studio audience, thank you for being with us today. Grateful to have you with us. Grateful to have you as part of the show. Grateful to be able to provide some very pertinent information that is important for our health and our well-being and the well-being of our community. So just really, really grateful for that as well. We've had some great hosts, some great individuals that have joined us on the show, and we're going to be bringing you some clips because we want to keep this information in front of you. We want to keep as much information as possible available to you so that you know the facts. And the facts is what's important. That way you can make an educated decision. So we're going to be bringing some clips of some of our previous guests on the show, just to keep that information fresh and in front of you as well. And I had the opportunity to take some information that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is providing for us as well. And just want to make sure that information is available because I think it's important that we all should know. We all should know, right? We all should know. So the CDC is working with state and local public health officials to monitor the spread of Omicron. And as of December 20th, 2021, which is just recent, Omicron has been detected in most states and territories and is rapidly increasing in proportion of COVID-19 cases it is causing. And current vaccines are expected to protect against severe illnesses, hospitalization, and deaths due to the infection with the Omicron variant. And vaccines remain the best public health measure to protect people from COVID-19, to slow transmission and reduce the likelihood of new variants emerging. And there's some other information that we need to know. And talking about Omicron, because that's the latest variant. And it's important that we have the right information and the right narrative out there, right? So COVID-19 vaccines are highly effective in preventing severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And this is coming from the Center for Disease Control, right? So these are coming from the ones that specialize in infectious disease, right? So that we make sure that we get some accurate information from a reputable source. And scientists are currently investigating Omicron, including how protected, fully vaccinated people will be against the infection, against hospitalization and death related to this new variant. And the CDC recommends that everyone 5 years or older protect themselves from COVID-19 by getting fully vaccinated. And the CDC also recommends that everyone ages 18 years and older should get a booster shot at least 2 months after their initial J&J vaccine or 6 months after completing their primary COVID-19 vaccination series of Pfizer or Moderna, right? So just here's some other information I think is really, really important, and we're gonna take it to some clips so that we can reintroduce some really, really good information that's provided by Dr. Dennis Churin, Martha Hall from the Lenawee Health Department, as well as in Dr. Yarrow. So we want to bring that information back. We want to keep that information right in front of you. And if you have any questions or any thoughts, or have you heard some other things that are floating out there as far as information, please take the moment, stop right now, put that in the comment section so that we can address these things, so that we can have open conversation about these things and get this information into those who truly understand COVID, its variants, and how it affects populations. We want to get that information out there. We want to make sure that you have the right information. So as of November 24th, I thought this was really, really some really good information to have. And I encourage folks to check out the CDC website. If you've got questions or want to know other information, check out the CDC website as well. You can also check out the Lenawee Health Department website and gather information as well so that you have that information. But November 24th, 2021, a new variant of SARS-CoV B11529 was reported to the World Health Organization. And this new variant was first detected in specimens collected in November 11, 2021 in Botswana and on November 14, 2021 in South Africa. November 26, WHO named the B11529 Omicron and classified it as a variant of concern, right? November 30th, the United States designated Omicron as a variant of concern. And December 1st this year, the first confirmed cases in the US of Omicron was identified. So it's here, and it's of major concern to us. What does this mean for us? What does this do for us? And that becomes important. And then the information that we're going to share today is information that you need to know and that you need to be aware of, because this is how we are all impacted. And there are things that we can do to help protect each other. So I'm going to bring you a few clips just to reintroduce some information that I think we all should really. Some of the concerns in our community is regarding long-term complications. So some things that families are discussing that may take place years from now. This is their concern about taking the vaccinations now, between whether it's the Moderna, Pfizer, or Johnson & Johnson. What their concerns is, what is it going to do to me long-term? Has this been tested? Have we seen any results from this? So that's one of the questions that I would like to bring up right now is, what are the long-term complications, or are there any long-term complications?
So in part of that question, I'd love to do it in two parts. So first, I'll address your question on long-term side effects of the vaccine, but your viewers also need to start thinking about what could be the long-term side effects of having a COVID infection. An easy way that I can explain that one is when, you have chicken pox, many people get vaccinated for it because they don't want to get shingles. So there's another example of a virus that we know has long-term side effects. And COVID, we're still studying, so we don't know that part, but I'd love to circle back to that. But, as it relates to the vaccine, this vaccine has probably had the most intense safety monitoring in US history. I've been asked questions, have the studies been shown to have efficacy against different ethnicities, different people of different skin colors? And yes, Moderna, Pfizer, J&J all had different ethnic groups in their studies. So African American, Hispanic, Asian, J&J even had Native Americans. So well-versed study group, great diversity, as well as age groups. We know there's a data reporting system called VAERS, and that's the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. That's been around for a long time, but many of us probably never heard of it until COVID, because now when we vaccinate folks for the COVID vaccine, we give individuals the data on the VAERS reporting system so they can report any side effect that they have. So when you look at some of the stats, I believe in the United States, we've administered over 223 million vaccines. So that's a lot of data we're collecting. And that data, the VAERS system captures potential side effects, but it can't tell us if that side effect is truly due to the vaccine. So when you look at that data, you have to realize people can report anything, but it's not proven until the scientists look into each and individual report if it's truly due to the vaccine. But what we know right now to date, there's 2 serious side effects that could happen after vaccination. And this is really rare, and most side effects would occur within the first 6 weeks. And I want to just emphasize that the risks of having COVID are higher than the risks of having an adverse reaction. So we're talking less than 0.001% are demonstrating this. But the first is anaphylactic reaction, which folks can have to any type of vaccine. And that's a severe reaction to one of the substrates in the vaccine. So you could have significant shortness of breath, elevated heart rates. A lot of people will say their throat looks like it's swelling. And if we have one of those reactions, then typically we treat it with antihistamines, so Benadryl or steroids, to try to reverse that effect. And then what we've seen reported out is about 5 individuals per million vaccines that we've administered get an anaphylactic reaction. So 5 in a million, so pretty low. The other one is what's called a thrombotic thrombocytopenic event. So that's just a fancy way of saying people that get blood clots with low platelets, which platelets are part of your blood. And we saw that in females that were less than 50 years of age with the J&J vaccine. And as of, I believe, the end of October data, they had vaccinated about 15.5 million people with J&J vaccine, and they had 48 cases of this. So again, really rare. It wasn't felt that that complication required us stopping the use of that vaccine. So the numbers are really small as it relates to the side effects. Most people, when they get the vaccine, particularly the second dose of a Pfizer or a Moderna, will have some localized reactions. So sore arm, redness at the injection site, fatigue, muscle aches, sometimes fever or chills. And they'll last anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. And then you wake up and you feel perfectly fine the way that you felt prior to getting vaccinated. We're also seeing the same incidents happen with people that are getting the booster. But again, you kind of go home, you take the day off, and you wake up the next day feeling fine. But if I could, just really quick, there's also long-term side effects we're seeing of COVID infection, and they're called the long haulers. And those are people that weeks, months, even greater than a year are still having problems with fatigue, breathing issues. I just talked to a friend who had COVID prior to the vaccine being out, and she's still requiring oxygen, and she was a triathlete. So no problems, just very bad luck. And a lot of people are having problems with concentrating. They call it brain fog, memory issues, sleeping disorders, loss of taste and smell. Some people are having heart issues, so they're requiring cardiac follow-up. So we are seeing from the data that we're collecting, there's also long-term side effects of getting the COVID infection.
What is the best way for our community to protect itself against the spread of COVID-19?
I have some statistics here from the New York Times fairly recently. And at least one dose, all ages, 71% of the US population has had at least one dose. And 60% of the US population is now vaccinated. This includes anybody from 5 on up. The kids that are under 5 have not been approved for vaccines yet. The good news is that between 95 and 99% of the adults over 65 have been vaccinated, which is great news because the people who are over 65 are most vulnerable. And 87% of those have been fully vaccinated. So the vaccine dosage is 2 doses and hopefully a booster. And about 200 million people now in the United States have gotten at least one vaccine, and 230 million people have had 2 vaccines, and another 50 million people have gotten the booster dose. So that's pretty good numbers, but it's not enough because we have a lot of vulnerable populations. About 87% of the people who are in the hospital now, and also those people who are passing away from COVID, which is a very serious disease, 87% of the people have not been vaccinated. So really, right now, it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. So the numbers are staggering for the importance. It doesn't mean if you've been vaccinated, you can't get the disease, but it's much more mild when you have the vaccination. If you don't have the vaccination, you have the full-blown effects of the vaccine. Some of you may have heard about Omicron. It's, I think, one of the letters in the Greek alphabet. I think it's number 15, 13 or 15. It's similar to Omega in terms of that's what they're using for the nomenclature for the vaccines now. And so let me just explain a little bit about how the vaccine works, and then I'll talk a little about this variant called Omicron. So vaccines work because the virus itself has what's called a spike protein. You've all seen the little picture of the virus, and has little peaks and points on it. Those are called spike proteins, and they get into the body when you're exposed. They attach to the cell membrane, and usually in the nose and throat and the lungs, the bronchial tubes, and they get inside the cell, and then they replicate inside the cell and cause the mischief that causes the disease. The lower your immune system, the more difficult it is to fight this off. So the vaccines work by especially the mRNAs. We'll talk a little bit about that. That's the Pfizer and the Moderna, which are the majority of vaccines that we use in this country. And what they do is you inject this mRNA, it's messenger RNA, it goes into the cell, and it produces it's called coding. It codes for spike protein, and the spike protein causes an antibody response in your body. So the body attacks this foreign substance. The good thing about mRNA, and even Johnson & Johnson, which is a DNA vaccine, it cannot cause COVID, but it creates an immune response so that when the body is now exposed to it, the body will fight off the infection by producing these antibodies, and they're called T cells, and they're neutralizing cells, and a bunch of other different kinds of cells, B cells. So it's very safe. No vaccine is 100% safe, but it's pretty darn safe. There's been hardly any major complications from the COVID vaccine, and it works remarkably well, especially for preventing serious disease. So that's a little bit how the vaccines work. So Omicron is a variation of the original Chinese variant that came to the United States, which is from the Wuhan province. And this virus has changed. The viruses have this natural ability to change, and it's called a mutation. So there's 30 different parts of this the COVID virus that has changed. So when it gets into the cell, it's a little bit different than the original ones. The vaccines seem to be working. What we're watching for is whether it takes over the Delta variant, which is the one that's been circulated. About 99% of all COVID viruses are Delta. But now we're starting to see it started in South Africa, and it's starting to take over Delta in South Africa. We have to wait and see. Here in this country, about 30 states right now have seen it. And the things that we're watching for are, one, we're watching for whether the virus is more pathogenic, meaning it's more infectious. More virulent, meaning it causes more serious disease. And then we want to find out if it's more infectious. Does it pass to more people more quickly? And the third one is whether it evades the vaccines. So we have very preliminary data. We have to watch it carefully. The CDC and the World Health Organization and all the scientists right now are watching very carefully, gathering the data to make sure that we understand what's going to happen. Right now, it appears that 3 vaccines, at least in South Africa, where it's more widespread, seems to be containing it to the point where people are not getting as sick as they were before. So certainly it helps to take the vaccine. Even if it's not 100% successful in preventing it, it certainly can keep you from getting very, very sick. And that's the major thing we want to make. We want to happen for us is through the vaccine is to not die and not get very sick and get long-standing COVID.
This is the information that we need to know. We need to be properly informed so that we know what steps to take, what are the proper measures, what things we can do to not just protect ourselves, but protect those whom we love. Let's take a commercial break. See you in a minute.
736 million people struggle to meet their basic needs. An estimated 40 million people have fallen victim to human trafficking. 51 million kids go hungry every day. And every day, United Way and our partners, including Kellogg, Wells Fargo, and UPS, fight for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community.
Welcome back to the show. This is One Voice Lenawee, brought to you by our sponsor, United Way of Monroe and Lenawee counties. We have another clip we want to show you, featuring Dr. Dennis Churin of the Lenawee Health Department. This information is really important. Take this moment, really tune in, really pay attention. But is there a possibility of there being other mutations after Omicron? Or
That's a really good question, D'Angelo. I appreciate that. Yes, there are. This is another reason, not only to prevent serious disease and death. It's a bad disease. I mean, 750,000 people have died in this country in a year, in less than 2 years from this particular virus. The less people who are vaccinated, the greater the chance that a new variant could form. The faster we get vaccinated, the less chances that the virus will stay in a body and create a situation where new viruses can mutate, especially in immunocompromised people who are sick with cancer and other things. They tend to get the COVID virus for longer periods of time, and so it gets into the body's immune system is weak. That's when the variants begin. So that's what they think what's happened in South Africa, where the virus came from. The faster we get the vaccines, not only to this country, but to developing countries, whether it's Africa or Asia or South America, the more developing countries, it's essential that we get the vaccine to those countries as well, because that's where variants can more easily pick up steam and develop.
Oh, wow. You mentioned vulnerable populations. If you could just kind of walk me through that just a little bit. What would we define as a vulnerable population?
Well, probably the biggest vulnerable population is people who are older. Younger people seem to get this virus less often than older people, and at least symptomatic. They get infections, but they're not as symptomatic. So the older population, people over 60, 65, and older, are the ones that are most vulnerable. It was ravaged to the nursing homes in the beginning, and that wasn't even the worst COVID virus. That was the original one, and then the Alpha virus variant. So that's one. Anybody who has immune problems, such as people on chemotherapy, people on steroids for immune compromised diseases, things like arthritis when they're taking drugs that are suppressive. These people are also vulnerable, very vulnerable. Anybody that has an underlying health condition, obesity is one of the major. It seems to be physical ailments. I use obesity as an ailment because it really is. So people who are overweight are also more vulnerable. They have a higher rate of death. And two of the reasons are, one is that in fat tissue, there's a lot of receptors. They're called ACE2 receptors. That's the ones we find on the nose and the throat, where the virus attaches to. And there's a lot of these receptors in fat cells. And also in those fat cells, there are what are called macrophages, fat macrophages. And these macrophages hyperreact to the virus and cause an inflammatory reaction. So people who get very sick and people who are on ventilators and people who are dying because of these an immune response. It's called a cytokine storm, where the body just overreacts to the virus and causes inflammation, and things get really out of control.
The next clip that we want to show you is brought to you by Martha Hall, also with the Lenawee Health Department. The reason that we bring you this information is that we really want you to understand the importance of being informed. And with this information, you can make some really important decisions that's going to impact your well-being, your health, and that of those around you. And we want you to have the correct information. So please, ma'am, please, sir, tune in.
D'Angelo, I do want to just say the one thing that I don't think we've really touched on much tonight is how important it is to get tested. So if you think that you've been exposed, or you've been exposed to somebody that is COVID positive, just really encourage you to get tested. We have a lot of testing opportunities available here in Lenawee County. Several of the pharmacies do testing. We have the testing that's done there at the transportation garage on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And again, all this information is on the website, lenawee.mi.us. But we have a lot of testing opportunities. So, if you have symptoms of COVID, if you've been exposed, whether you're vaccinated or not, please get tested. And if you test positive, please make sure that you're isolating and staying away from others, so that, we're not continuing to spread the virus in the community. I think all of us look forward to the day when we're no longer talking about COVID, and we don't have the concerns with COVID spreading in the community that we do right now. And we all look forward to that. So just want to really encourage everyone, there's really simple safety or prevention strategies that we can all use. Dr. Chernan's mentioned the masks a couple of times. I don't like wearing a mask, but I put one on when I go in the store, or if I have to go in someplace that's a public location. So, you know, that's really important, making sure that we're washing our hands regularly. You know, I don't know that we've ever talked about hand washing so much. You know, in the last 2 years, we've certainly heard a lot about washing our hands.
Yeah.
But you know, it's such an important thing, and it's not just COVID. You know, hand washing is so important in disease prevention in general. So it's a really good habit to be in, you know. But just some of those really simple prevention strategies. You know, we're getting into the, you know, the holiday season. People are gathering together with their families, with their friends. You know, try to spread out so that, you know, bigger spaces are better than smaller spaces if you can manage that. You know, having increased ventilation, you know, just opening up the windows a little bit. My grandkids will attest to the fact that, you know, we frequently crack the windows. In fact, we always crack the windows when we're driving, when we're, you know, because you're talking about a few people in the car, it's a closed space. So bring in a little more fresh air. And we can do the same thing when we're gathering together, you know, over the holidays. So just really encourage everybody, let's try and do this as safely as possible. If you have questions and you don't have a healthcare provider, there are nurses at the health department that would be more than glad to talk to someone about vaccination and provide them with information. I talk to people quite regularly. If you do have a healthcare provider, please have that conversation with them and see if they encourage you to get vaccinated. It's an important tool in our toolbox, and anything we can do to encourage others is really important.
Martha.
Thanks, Martha. I'd like to add one real quick thing.
Yes, sir.
Pharmacies are our allies. We're in a partnership with them. They do vaccines too, besides the health department. So lean on the pharmacies. They're doing a great job. And also, besides the PCR test that you can get at various places, pharmacies do sell the antigen test. And while they're not as sensitive and specific, as reliable as the PCR test that you can get at the health department and other places, they are a good screening tool. A lot of the schools are using that right now, the antigen test to show who's been, not only has the disease, but who's been exposed. So, and we've been working with the schools a lot, with superintendents. They've been, you know, very helpful in helping to get the message across that masks are important and testing is important.
Okay, I was going to ask this question as well, Martha. If an agency was interested in becoming a testing site, or is it a possibility to partner with the health department with that? What would be the steps if an agency was interested in that?
So if there's an agency that is interested, we can certainly have that conversation and see, you know, depending on what they were planning on doing. Are they looking at, you know, testing their employees? Are they looking at being a site that's open to the public? And we could certainly provide some guidance on what they may need to do to be able to do that.
Really grateful for all of the information that has been shared with us today. Grateful for all of our guests that have come on the show. Grateful to have Dr. Yarrow from the Charles and Virginia Hickman Hospital located here in Lenawee County. Also for Dr. Dennis Churin of the Lenawee Health Department and Martha Hall of the Lenawee Health Department, looking to bring other individuals on to keep us informed as things progress, as things change, as the challenges that we're facing in our world is changing and developing, as we're finding solutions to some of the challenges that we're facing. We want to bring that information to you right here on One Voice Lenawee. We encourage you to click that subscribe button, stay informed, stay connected with us. Tell your friends about the show. Tell them about the information that is provided. We've got folks out there that are questioning, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing for me to do? I encourage you to get with your healthcare provider and to have this conversation. Have this conversation. Is this good for you? Is this the right step for you? And what steps do we need to take to be safe? There are places that you can go and to gather information and to be tested and to have vaccinations provided all throughout Lenawee County. I would encourage you to go to the Lenawee Health Department's website. You'll find a lot of information there that will direct you as to what locations are available, the times and the days that vaccinations are available, the times and days that testing is available as well, and the kits that you can purchase at Walgreens or CVS to be tested with COVID as well, the at-home kits. So please take the time to sit down with your family, take the time to sit down with your health providers and ask these questions. Is this good for me? What protection does this provide? And we will work to continue to provide information on this platform to make sure that you remain informed as things develop. Again, thank you for joining One Voice Lenawee. Thank you for being a part of the show. And we're hoping to keep everyone informed in our community. If you have any questions, please write it down in that comment section. We will definitely get back with you. And perhaps your question may be the next question we address on the show. Thank you for joining One Voice Lenawee. This is D'Angelo Boone, signing off.